Well, folks, as promised, look who I've got with me. Faith Goldy, Toronto Mayoral Candidate for 2018. Faith, it's nice to see you.
It's an honor to be with you, Michael.
Sorry for blowing up your phone, but I really wanted you on here, and I feel you deserve to be on here because the way you've been treated is completely ridiculous.
Well, I'm a big fan of your journalism and commentary. I know that you've got a huge growing base across Toronto and beyond, and so, like I said, it's just a real pleasure and delight to be with you today,
Thank you
Michael.
very much. I appreciate it. So we're going to go through a few parts of this interview. We're not going to spend too much time on playing devil's advocate. I want you to explain what you're going to do for the city of Toronto.
I love it.
But there is one issue that we have to get through first, and that is, Faith Goldy, are you a racist?
No, my friends. You know, this fake news, they call me a Nazi, they call me a white supremacist, a white nationalist, and I tell them this: I'm a red and white nationalist. I bleed maple syrup. I'm about Canada first, I'm about Toronto first. And as far as this Nazi baloney that's out there, I believe in the one-state solution for Israel, which is Israel first, the Jewish people have that property, have that majestic little sliver of the Middle East. I've been against the boycotts, divestments, and sanctions campaign for over 10 years on the record. Look, the people that are now propagating these hideous, libelous, slanderous terms against me, we know what it is. It is a page out of Saul Alinsky's War Games, really. And that is, you use these terms as tools for oppression. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. And just because I might say things that are politically incorrect, like illegal migration should remain illegal and we should put our own people first, namely new and old stock Canadians who pay their taxes, follow the laws, waited in line, etc. You might not like it because it sounds politically incorrect, but that doesn't make me a bad person. I think it actually has me very much in line with the majority of Torontonians, and I'm also a good Christian girl, so it's hard for me to...
That's one thing I was actually going to mention. You know, you're a Christian, and I want you to swear before God and before the people of Toronto that you are not a racist or hate anybody because of their skin color or ethnicity in any way.
Right. No, I love everyone. I don't swear to God, I'm sorry to say.
That's
I don't do that. It's like outside of my purview as a Catholic girl. But God knows my heart better than anyone at the Toronto Star. God knows that I love all his children equally. But that being said, I am not lost on the fact that some of his children have taken very wrong steps and are in the grips of the evil one and are the wolves who long to prey on the flock. And I want to take care of the flock in this great city, the good people who are now being manipulated and taken advantage of, hosed as taxpayers, paying for illegal migration, lied to about this idea that there's some sort of reason why we can't have practices like carding, etc., because standing up for police intelligence somehow makes you a racist. I don't give a damn what color your skin is. I care about the content of your behavior.
Absolutely.
And that's all it comes down to.
I think one of the biggest reasons why this whole racism, white supremacist thing has come up is two reasons, and we'll get into the two very quickly. Number one is that interview with Daily Stormer. You said you regretted it. What got you to go on there? What was it?
It was very simple. I had the front seat to the biggest news story in the world that weekend. If you recall, North Korea and America basically had missiles pointed at each other, and yet Nazis on the street of Virginia took the world by storm. Charlottesville took the world, and it was my footage that was broadcasted across the globe. I literally had a front row seat. I talked to anyone who would pay attention. Reuters, CNN, Fox, this thing that was called the crypto report that I had never heard of before. But that same day, I also talked to Israel's Channel 2 News, and it was selective reporting. And look, at the end of the day, it was a guilt by association charge that was slated against me. Insofar as it was nothing that I said, it was who I said it to. And I reject that. I would have talked to Antifa if they would have had me on. Truly.
Right. And then one more thing, and we'll go, this is the last point, and then we're going to go on to the bread and butter issues. This 14 points. Now, you said that in regards to the 14 words about, I don't know them by heart, but you said it's not racist because if you replace white with like native, everybody would be jumping on that bandwagon. I think one of the biggest problems people have with the 14 words is that it was created by a white supremacist by the name of David Lane. So what would you say to people who say, well, okay, you can take out white all you want, but it was still created by a white supremacist? What would you say to them?
Yeah, look, I've also quoted the likes of Stalin. That doesn't make me a Stalinist, right? Sometimes, bad people can make a point, if that kind of makes sense. And my point was not to advocate it or one way or another. I'm a journalist who is performing a thought experiment, and part of my journalism and my bold brand of journalism, rather, has been to wade into topics that sometimes people don't want to pursue the truth and follow the facts wherever they lead. And that's the sort of bold, fearless attitude that I want to bring with me to City Hall.
Absolutely. Now, what happened to you when you were taken off that stage by the Toronto police? You weren't arrested, were you?
Oh, no, not charged, not anything. We were just told that basically we can't come back on the property for the rest of the day lest it be considered trespassing. But what happened immediately after the fact is that that lovely officer and myself had a couple words, and I just said, look, we love our officers. We're the only ones who are out here talking about you guys, who want to help give you guys back the powers to make our streets safe again. So I think by the end of it, we might have actually had a few new voters from the guys who dragged us off stage.
Really? Those two guys that dragged you off, now they could be
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it was a complete win for us.
The arts, I think it's called the arts vote, they said that you hadn't filled in the proper paperwork.
Baloney, Michael.
And that's why you weren't on there. So
no, it was all garbage. They never sent us anything. We never got this survey that they talked about. We never got any emails or follow-up emails. They claimed that there was a whole thread of things going on. Not only do I monitor my personal and public account, I've got other volunteers and campaign staff that are doing the same. So there are a lot of eyeballs for, primary, then secondary, tertiary vetting to make sure that we're looking at every single thing that is sent to us. And there is obviously a prioritization system. If we see that it is a lobby group that wants to involve us in the public conversation when we're so starved to get a word in edgewise, we're going to prioritize those emails. Not only was there no prioritization, well, because in fact nothing ever came through. So that was Arts Vote Toronto being in damage control mode, knowing that they screwed up. And I'll tell you why. Since announcing my bid to become mayor, we have been placing in the top 3 consistently, to the point where we, at the time of the vote, were polling higher than all 32 candidates below me combined. And yet they got 3 other literally who's up on stage, and one Faith Goldy is off on the sidelines, and when she tries to play ball, she's dragged off.
I never watched that debate, but it was John Tory, Keys Matt. Who else was on that stage?
Nath, Sarah something rather, and Sarah on something another.
Wow, well, because I've been looking at the latest polls, and a few of them have you in 3rd place.
That's right.
Which is pretty impressive, Faith.
Thank you.
And yet, I heard that recording of you with somebody at Bell Media when you were asking why your ads were forbidden to be shown on CP24, CTV, and all those Bell Media corporations. He consistently said, "I'm sorry, Faith, I can't allow this." Like a recording, just over and over and over again.
Like a robot.
Do you think that John Tory is afraid of you?
Yeah, he's massively terrified, and I don't blame him. He's got a loser record. He is a loser just in personality. He's surrounded himself with these old school elitists who don't get what's going on around the water cooler, around the dinner table, of not just the old school priority neighborhoods of our city, but all across the city. Because John Tory, on his watch, congestion's gotten worse. A lot of the usual city business has gotten worse, but our murder rates are now higher than New York City's. Our illegal gun crime is up by 200% almost in the past year alone. The guy has a terrible record. And part of that terrible record is doing things like going to mosques that call for unbelievers to be slayed one by one. These guys call me all sorts of evil names under on the face of the planet. Meanwhile, the guy's going to mosques that says that we should eliminate the filth of the Jew from our presence. What the heck? This guy knows where he's. I don't know what kind of podcast I was on. Once I knew, I was like, okay, we're not going back on that.
Yeah,
this guy knows what mosques he's going into, and he keeps going back. Why? He wants to vote seek with, frankly, a group of people who need to start disavowing of certain of their own actions because they're incongruent with Canadian values and the Canadian way of life. You have freedom of speech here, but once you start calling for genocidal violence against a different group of people, we got to sort out what's going on there. And so he's worried that I'm going to call him out on his record, and he's worried more than anything about my platform. They've seen it. They know that this is a winning platform and that it speaks to the minds and the hearts of ordinary Torontonians.
Well, the latest polls, let's not lie, John Tory is in a very big lead, but I feel that the Ford vote, Ford Nation, is split between Tory and yourself, and maybe a few others in between. In a few seconds before we get to the next part of this interview, why should people choose you over Mr. Tory?
Yeah, absolutely. So with respect to Ford Nation, it's easy. I'm the only candidate in the top 3 that actually wants to work with the amazing premier that we have now, as opposed to against him. That includes things like building the 3 most important things that are going to solve congestion right now. That's subways, and subways. On top of that, I'm actually going to work with our police, empower them, and actually handcuff the bad guys, as opposed to the way that it's now working. We're going to bring back TAVIS, the anti-violence intervention strategy. We're going to bring back TAVIS because we're going to start to put public safety above political correctness. And part of that is I've got a no-nonsense approach. John Tory, tomorrow, he could not show up for work and no one knows what his response would be because he doesn't have a spine. He doesn't have a backbone. Jellyfish John is what we call him. His idea is whatever the last voice was inside one of his ears. Jellyfish John, do this. Jellyfish John, do that. Faith Goldy has been on the records for the past 10 years of my life in front of a camera, and I've told you where I stand. I'm unafraid of wading into the tough conversations, and right now, Toronto needs to have a tough conversation because one of the things that we're now facing is a rise of, frankly, radicalism within some of our institutions. That's why I'm going to be bringing things like an extremist audit. If you are a religious institution that calls for something like genocidal violence against unbelievers, a discernible group, then we're going to make sure that you lose your permit. And on top of that, we're going to make sure that you yourself, as an organization, are dealt with to the maximum capabilities of Canadian law.
When we come back, we'll be talking about the bread and butter issues, transportation, public transit, crime, and many more. Plus, at the end of this interview, I will be allowing this candidate, Faith Goldy, to make at least a 1-minute statement to the people of Toronto. We'll be right back.